Hi everyone! How are you today? It's lovely to be back here with you all. So let's start off with some news. I've just started my YouTube channel and what I'm doing is I'm uploading all of my Facebook lives onto it because I'm getting so many people asking me for links. And yes, Facebook does keep the videos on my page. However, it's much easier to access them all on my YouTube page. So you can look for The Mama Manual. It's a new channel. There are just 3 videos up for now. However, of course, I'm planning to upload all of them. And if you subscribe, you'll also make sure that you'll get a notification each and every time a new video is up, so for sure you won't miss anything. So today's live it's actually linked to my last blog post. So if you haven't read my last blog post, you can go to www.themamamanual.com/latest and you will see a recipe for slow cooker creamy beef stroganoff. The recipe was actually inspired by a recipe from another blog, but what I did is, and this is what I usually do with all of my recipes, is I tripled the recipe in this case because I wanted to batch cook. Because as you know, I very rarely cook for once. If I can cook for 3 or 4 times, why not? And that is why I have a large slow cooker. But I know that some of you might have questions about this because I do receive quite a bit of messages about it, asking, should I triple the water? How long should I cook it for? Any other amendments which I should make to the recipe? So I thought this would be the perfect live to go through how I adapted that particular recipe for a larger slow cooker, as well as how to adapt any type of conventional recipe to a slow cooker recipe. So hang on, because I've got some great tips for you over here. So in case you don't know who I am, my name is Nakita, and my mission is to help moms to manage their time better so that they can live a life that they so love and leave some time for themselves. I run the Mama Manual blog and social media pages, so if you haven't checked them out or if you haven't subscribed, I suggest you do so now. So, let's just see if you're all coming on here. Okay, I can see some faces. And actually, Liz says that she tried the recipe. I added peas and carrots though, but everyone loved it. Perfect, I'm so glad you loved it. Hi, Annie. Annie says, awesome, thank you. Hi, Roberta. Roberta also tried the recipe and she said that's a yummy recipe. Hi, Elaine. So, can I get a like just to make sure you're all listening? Oh, actually, let's make it more fun today. I want each of you to find an emoji that best suits your mood right now, okay? I'll check back and I'll see how you're feeling today. And I also want to ask you, first of all, how many of you have a slow cooker? So if you have one, now whether you're watching live or whether you're watching the recording, just write yes. So if you have a slow cooker, please write yes. Now, if you're thinking of getting one, I'd also like to know that. So please leave a comment right down there. And to all my slow cooker queens, have you ever tried adapting recipes? So whether it's taking a recipe which cooks just one family portion and enlarging it to batch cook for 2, 3 times, let's say, or even have you taken a conventional recipe and adapted it for a slow cooker? Have you managed? Have you found any struggles? Do you have any problems or any questions you'd like to ask? So leave your comments in the comments box and I'll come back to you later. As you might probably know, because I do blog about my slow cooker quite a lot, I started adapting slow cooker recipes almost right off the bat because I was very excited to have my slow cooker and it was saving me a lot of time straight away. However, for all those of you who maybe have just bought one and are still struggling, I want you to know that it's not super easy, like open up your slow cooker and get it right away. No. A slow cooker does take some time to get used to. I had 2 different versions and even when I switched model, I took some time to adapt to the new model. Why? Because all of them cook at different temperatures and all of them work slightly different. So it's normal for you to try a recipe and maybe have it a little bit too watered down or maybe just a little bit tougher than you'd like it to be. Anyhow, what I do suggest is don't give up, keep trying because it will get better. And once you get the knack of it, I promise you, your life will be so much easier. So I'm going to share the tips which will help you and I'm hoping that you can be on your way to slow cooker success. So let's kick this off. Let me just check in and see if we've got any questions and see who's here with us. Leanne says, no, I haven't got a slow cooker yet, but you're getting me very interested. You should be. It is a hell of a time saver, I promise you. Daniela is feeling happy, I can guess. Barbara says, no, not yet. Petra says, okay, Petra has a slow cooker, but she invents her own recipes. Interesting. I am quite, I do like to experiment, but due to the fact that I plan quite a bit, I don't leave much to my imagination, to be honest. So Petra, that's excellent. If you can be creative, that's good on you. And Sarah Celia says, yes, I have a multi-cooker and I love it. So it's probably the same model that I have as well. Sonia, perfect timing. Looking forward to this. Just bought a slow cooker. Annie says, no, not yet. Someone looks stressed. I'm trying to check all of the emojis. So if you've just joined, I've asked everyone to choose an emoji to show how they're feeling right now. We're going to make it a bit fun today. Berta says yes. Daniela says yes. Sonia says yes. Yvette, Alison, Clarice all say yes. So quite a bit of you have slow cookers, I can see. So if you've just joined us, the topic today is all about how I adapted a recent recipe I blogged about. And if you'd like to see the recipe and you haven't yet, you can go to www.themamamanual.com/latest and you'll get access to my last recipe, which was slow cooker creamy beef stroganoff. Now, the recipe basically yielded like a family portion, and I wanted to batch cook for my large 6-liter slow cooker. And you do need to tweak recipes slightly to do that. Now, also I'm going to touch on, and I'm going to give you actually all the details so you can change any recipe from a conventional one to a slow cooker one. Just in case you don't know who I am, my name is Nakita. I run the Mama Manual blog and social media pages, and my mission is to help moms live a more intentional life by helping them to manage their time better. So let's kick off this topic, shall we? So the first thing that I did to adapt the slow cooker recipe, and this is something that I do with every recipe, is I just went through the recipe and I made sure that I understood every single thing that there was in the instructions. Always very important. It might be obvious, but some people just skim through it and then halfway through realize they've missed an important detail. So, as I already mentioned, I tripled this recipe. So I took the ingredients and I bought triple of everything basically. Now you might say, how do you kind of gauge how like if you're going to double it or triple it or quadruple the recipe? What I do is I'm used to my slow cooker now, so I try to imagine. I look at the main ingredients, so in this case there was the beef, and I try to imagine how many kilos of beef would fit into my slow cooker. Now, if there's any other ingredient which takes up a lot of space because there's a lot of it, let's say for example there was carrots in this case and there was a kilo of carrots as well, of course I would try to imagine the carrots and the beef, how many kilos of those two ingredients would fit inside the slow cooker. Now, if you're unsure, err on the side of caution. So let's say you're not sure if you should double or triple. What I would suggest is double the recipe for this time around because you're not sure, and just make sure you take note afterwards that you could have easily tripled it. So taking note is an important part of slow cooking because as you go along, you will start to decide if you're doubling a recipe, if you're tripling it, how much water you added, the cooking time if you're changing the recipe from the original one. So I do suggest that in some way or another, you take some notes which you can easily access later. So second thing that I did, so this recipe was already intended for slow cooking, but there wasn't any instructions on browning the meat. Now, if you have the same slow cooker that I have, you can brown the meat in the same pot, which is amazing because that cuts back on washing an extra pan. But I highly suggest that you do this. Browning only takes a couple of minutes and it seals the meat in nicely and you can get more flavors as well. So that's the first thing that I did. I just browned the meat and then I went on to the next step, which was I removed the water, in this case the recipe called for beef broth or some sort of other broth, but it was broth, completely. Yes, I know you might be thinking, wow, that's daring. So you cooked with no water at all? And yes, the recipe was already a slow cooker one, but from experience, I've learned that my slow cooker produces so much liquid from the condensation that in the beginning, all my meals used to be completely watered down. Now you can remedy that. You can add some cornstarch at the end, take off the lid, or even add some flour. Put the slow cooker onto slow cooking high mode if you don't have the saute function, or you can switch it to the hot saute function on high and just mix it and blend it in so you can thicken the sauce. And another option is to just switch it on high so that the liquid evaporates, of course taking off the lid as well. However, I did this each and every time and still I realized that I was having too much liquid inside my dishes. So slowly, I started to reduce the water in my recipes until I discovered that in most cases, my recipes needed no liquid at all. So yes, even though this recipe called for 2 cups water, and that's only with one portion, remember I tripled this. So if you were to take the most logical route, you would probably add 6 cups water and it would probably you would end up with some sort of brothy version. It wouldn't look like a slow cooker stroganoff. And mine turned out perfect. So I know that some of you have tried this recipe, and of course I think that you followed my suggestions. And I do say that you shouldn't add any water. Now, if you've tried it, let me know in the comments because I'd like to know how the final result was. So was it watery or was the consistency perfect? Was it too thick? Now, just a little side note, if you're cooking a recipe and you err on the side of caution as well with the water, and at the end you decide that it's too thick, maybe you're making a soup and it needs to have a bit more liquid, you can always add some liquid at the end. So hold back on the water because it is your biggest enemy. So the next thing that I did, of course, I increased the cooking time. Now, again, I did not triple the cooking time. The cooking time needs to be increased slightly. Why? Because once the food is cooking at a good rate inside the slow cooker, you don't need to triple it. The longest cooking time kind of is until the full-on slow cooking mode kicks in. Once the food is cooking, you don't need to you don't need to triple the recipe because the slow cooker is already cooking the food efficiently. So the recipe said cook from 8 to 9 hours on low. Now again, this is where you need to get used to your slow cooker. My slow cooker is quite fast and it's quite efficient. So I always choose the lower end of the cooking spectrum. So in this case, if I were to cook the recipe as is from the original, I would have opted for 8 low, not 9 low. Now, since I tripled the recipe, I cooked it for 12 hours on low. And again, it just cooked the recipe as it should be, and the meat was very, very tender and just perfectly cooked. Now, if you're trying a recipe for the first time and you're not sure how long you should cook it for, or maybe you're just popping a roast in there and you don't need the recipe, you can get one of these temperature probes. And the handy thing about it is, I suppose you can do it with all of them, I've managed with my one, is that you can insert the probe inside the little hole on the lid of the slow cooker. So without opening it, because each and every time you uncover your slow cooker, you're losing 30 minutes of cooking time. So basically you just need to add 10 minutes to the time that you already have. So if you just insert the probe from the hole, you can check the recipe of your meat so you make sure that it's safe for eating. Now, of course, if you're cooking something like a curry or you've got little bits of chicken or meat or veggies even inside the dish, you cannot check if they've been cooked thoroughly. But you can, of course, until you're used to the recipe and maybe it's your first time, and if you're unsure, you can try it. If it's not cooked, you can just put the lid back on and remember to add 30 minutes of cooking time to the time that you have in mind, so you make sure that your dish is well cooked throughout. Next point, I did not add the dairy. Now, I actually never like adding dairy, or very rarely, it depends what it is, to my slow cooking, but I'd much rather add it at the end. Now, if I'm cooking for one time and I'm not freezing, which is not the norm, but some of you might have a slow cooker, I add the dairy during the last 30 minutes of slow cooking, because the slow cooking, the low temperatures might spoil or curdle the milk or the dairy that you might add. So in this case, since I was going to batch cook, I decided that I would omit the dairy completely, and then I would add it. In this case, I had the cream cheese. I decided I would add it each and every time I took out a portion from the freezer, defrosted it, and then put it onto the hob to reheat, and I'd add the dairy then and there. So this is something that I also did when I batch cooked this particular recipes. Now, if you are adapting a recipe to batch cook and freeze, I just went through the motions, but I am going to summarize all the points that I just mentioned. So very quickly, you need to be careful of the liquid. I usually omit it completely, but then again, you should try and get used to your slow cooker and err on the side of caution. You should check about the cooking time, so don't triple the cooking time. And you should also, of course, check the number of ingredients that you're going to put inside the pot. So just go through the recipe and try and imagine how much of each ingredient you should put into the pot so it fits perfectly. And be careful with the dairy. So dairy should always be added when you're defrosting the food and heating up the particular recipe. So let's get back into the comments and see if we have any info. So Heather says, if you have any recipes, can you share them, please? I only use the slow cooker for stews. Wow, there are so many recipes you can do. Now, if you go onto my blog, themamamanual.com, and you have the tags. So if you're on your mobile phone, you need to scroll to the very bottom, and if you click on slow cooker, it will take you to all my slow cooker recipes and blog posts. If you're using a laptop or computer, the tags are on the right-hand side of the page. If you don't manage, send me a PM and I'll be more than happy to help. So I've got a few favorites in there, and also I've got the fastest family favorites for the slow cooker inside of my book. Now, besides that, some of you might have been following my Instagram stories. I am working on the most fantastic freebie, which a lot of you voted for, and I'm going to give a very, very long list of simple recipes which you can cook, and some of them are slow cooker ones as well. Of course, I'll keep sharing any recipes, yes, as I'll go along. As always, I love to share and help, so yes, Heather, most gladly. Petra says, do you have soup recipes that turn out well? Any soup recipe that I've tried turns out well. I obviously, as I mentioned, you need to be careful with the water. And if you have the sauté function or a slow cooker, that's perfect, because you can cook all the vegetables beforehand on the sauté function before adding a little bit of liquid and letting it slow cook to perfection. So let's check some more comments. Hi Janice, hi Stephanie, hi Christina, hi Maureen. So Alicia says, have you ever tried any sweet recipes in the slow cooker? I've tried a simple yogurt cake once, and it did turn out well. However, it's not the function that I find most handy, because mostly I just cook savory foods. No particular reasons. I mean, it was delicious, yes, but I use it mostly for batch cooking and, you know, for something quick and easy and delicious, which I just pop into the slow cooker and leave it cooking so I can find a huge batch or something warm to come home to after a work day. So not much sweets, I'm afraid. And Erica says, I use it for stews and sauces, to make sauces in bulk. Yes, I do that as well. In fact, I think it's tomorrow that I'm cooking my traditional Maltese timpana recipe. Arru, not timpana. For all you foreigners watching, basically it's like a bolognese sauce mixed with pasta, which you put in the oven. So I've got my sauce ready, and all I'm going to do is add some cream to it, and then mix it up with the pasta, put a bit of parmesan on top, and pop it in the oven. Delicious. So yes, Erica, I love doing that as well. And Alison says, I have it, but I rarely use it. I don't know what I can cook in it. Now, Alison, you can start from my book if you have it, and also, as I mentioned, you can go to my blog, and I have a few recipes, but you can cook curries, stews, risottos, soups. I don't know if I've mentioned it already. Lasagna, you will be surprised. It turns out fantastic. Roasts, like whole chicken and like leg of lamb. Basically, lots of stuff. Liz says, I do use it. It's a lifesaver for busy days. Once I tried doing baked pasta on it and it came out quite good. Actually, even better, more creamy and more tasty. Yes, I did that as well and I fully agree. So Petra says, I like it for meat and stews, but not soups till now. So advice on soups, appreciated. So as I mentioned, just be careful with the liquid and give it a shot. I'd love to know how it goes for you. Sarah says, hi Nakita, I don't have a slow cooker. I'm interested in purchasing one. However, I'd like it to be lead free. As I've read, they contain lead. Is yours made of stainless steel? I believe so. And if you can access my review, which you can find on my blog, themamamanual.com. So if you go and you search and you look at the tags, you click on there are the tags on the side of the page or at the bottom if you're on your mobile phone. If you click on slow cooker, it will bring up all of the blog posts with info on slow cookers. So my memory is terrible, to be honest, and I can't quite remember, but I'm almost sure that it is stainless steel. Something else you can do is you can actually search inside my blog and just write slow cooker, and that will bring the review up. So check it out. But I'm 99.9% sure that yes, it is stainless steel. Alrighty, so, and Karen says, I just bought one, can't wait to try it. So perfect timing for you as well. Hello Alexia, hello Alicia. Okay. So we can move on to the second part of this live, which is how to adapt conventional recipes, basically any slow cooker recipes, to a slow cooker one. Now this is very interesting and very useful because most of the time I come across recipes which are made for cooking on a stovetop or inside the oven, and I think to myself, now if I had to cook this inside the slow cooker and just, set it and forget about it and let it cook, and even cook in batches and have 3 portions of this recipe or 4 portions of this recipe, it would be so much better than having to think about having something in the oven and having to watch it so it doesn't get burnt, or having to mix something on the stovetop. And this is where I decided to try experimenting with different types of recipes to see how they turn out. So, your biggest concern when doing this, once again, can you guess what it is? Come on. It's water. Water is the slow cooker's biggest enemy. So again, you need to be very careful about it. So most recipes will tell you, or most websites will tell you to cut back on the water by 50%. Now I've tried this myself personally. I still think that 50% of the water is too much, but of course you can try it out. And you can try my strategies, which I mentioned, if your recipe is too watery. And in reality, what I do is I cut back on it 100% or 80 to 85% at the most, depending on how I feel about the particular recipe which I am following. Now, try it out, see how it works for you. Most probably, if you have the same model that I have, it should be round about the same. So that is the first thing that you should look out for. So liquid, like water, like broths, just be careful about it, because you will end up with a very soggy recipe if you're not conservative with the water inside it. So again, dairy. If a recipe calls for dairy, you can either add it at the very end during the last 30 minutes of slow cooking if you're just cooking one portion. Now, if you're batch cooking the recipe, do not add the dairy, freeze the individual portions, and after you defrost one portion of the recipe, and when you put it back onto the stovetop to reheat, add the dairy then and there at that particular time. The cooking time. So I don't know these off by heart, of course, so I'm just going to read them off. So if a recipe asks for 15 to 30 minutes of conventional cooking time, you should cook for 4 to 6 hours on low. Now if it asks for 35 to 45 minutes of cooking time, you should cook for 6 to 8 hours on low. If it's 50 minutes to 3 hours of cooking time, you should go for 8 to 10 hours of low. Now, if you're in a hurry and you're going to cook using the high setting, approximately the high setting is more or less double the low setting. So if you are cooking for 6 hours on low, then you should be cooking for 3 hours on high. If you're cooking for 8 hours on low, then it should be for 4 hours on high. Just a couple of recipes which I would never adapt from a conventional one to a slow cooker one. So I would never adapt a risotto recipe because that would be completely different when you're cooking it for a slow cooker. So if you want to make a risotto, look for a risotto recipe which is a slow cooker one straight away, because you need to follow the instructions for the liquid word by word over here. And also be very careful when batch cooking risottos, because they don't usually turn out as well. I like to stick to the same portion when cooking a risotto. Couscous doesn't do well in the slow cooker, so never try to adapt a recipe from a conventional one to a slow cooker one when it involves couscous, unless of course you add the couscous, you boil it separately or you cook it separately and you just add it when the recipe is cooked. And seafood which cooks quickly. So when you're looking at things like salmon or shrimp, which cook so quickly that if you cook them in a slow cooker, they will just disintegrate and you'll end up with a sloppy mess. So that is also something that I wouldn't suggest that you add to your slow cooker. Now, do you have any questions? Let's see if we have some over here. So just looking at the comments. So Stephanie's saying, I'm rushing from one place to another. We'll watch this later. I really wanted to make it on time. So Stephanie, if you weren't here, I've just launched my YouTube channel. I just have a couple of videos now, but I'm going to be uploading all of my lives. So you can look for the Mama Manuel YouTube channel and subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos. Edith says, thank you. And hello to Louise, who says, I fully agree with you. Okay, it looks like we don't have any more questions. So just to remind you, since we're talking about food today, how many of you have signed up to my newsletter, which I send out every week? I want to get yeses so I can see how many of you are on my list and how many of you use my meal plan. If you don't know, each and every week on a Friday, early morning, I send out an email with a link to my latest blog post, and I also share my weekly meal plan. So I share what I'm cooking for the following week, and I also share some links so you can get some inspiration when you're meal planning for your family. And now, if you haven't signed up to my newsletter yet and you want to get your hands on my meal plan to get a bit of help when you're sitting down and trying to plan the food for the week, all you need to do is go to www.themamamanuel.com/closetguide. So to subscribe and get my meal plan, all you need to do is go to www.themamamanuel.com/closetguide. Now you won't just get access to my weekly email and to my meal plan, but if you subscribe and do it before it goes away, you will get access to my free PDF which guides you step by step. It's a complete hand-holding process on how to organize your wardrobe. And this is perfect for this time of the year because I also help you switch your closet from winter to summer, and I also help you get rid of the stuff you don't love to make space for the stuff that you use and you love. So getting dressed every day is a breeze. So I suggest that you do sign up. Now that's all for today. I wish you the rest of a lovely day, and I'll see you over here on Facebook today week, same time, same place. It was a pleasure being with you. Take care, mamas, and bye-bye.